Gnothiseuton, love, peace, blessing, all manner of health, wellness, goodness, love, healing. Something good is going to happen to you today. And today I want to talk about trading messages or trading stories. It's very, very powerful, especially now when we're, in an election year and, coming off the election. All of those emotions are very, very high, very, very strong, very, very emotionally charged. And now we're coming into the holiday season. And the holiday season is also very, very emotionally, energetically charged. And sometimes they can, the season and the songs, the aura, the feeling, the energy can trigger people all the way back to some of their earliest memories and, just cause a little bit of a problem sometimes. And what we also find is that there are messages, there are stories. We all have our story. We have our story that we tell ourselves who we are. And that's the important thing to note, is who we are telling ourselves who we are. And what happens is that sometimes when we come together, in groups or with people, especially people, family, who we're emotionally involved with, what happens is that there can be stories, there can be messages that are traded in our subconscious. And with these stories, they usually begin to gain traction, power, momentum, emotional power through judgment. And sometimes we're around people and, maybe we have family members and we may be a little judgmental towards them. And what that seems to do is open their judgmentalism right back to us. It seems to be a psychic, energetic connection. And what can happen is when we're having an emotional experience because we're interacting with these people, sometimes we find what we think they either intend or think about us. Because we start to contemplate that, what happens is that we allow that program into ourselves and then it starts to fulfill itself. What's an example? A good example is you may have, maybe you're married, you have a family, you and your wife or husband have, already had a couple of children, but there's somebody in your family or in your close energetic family type connection that can't have children, and but they have become very prosperous. They've put their emotions and their energy into work, and they're prosperous. And then the people who don't have children, maybe they're occupied by raising children and don't put quite as much energy into prosperity. And it looks like having a family means that you can't prosper and you can't be wealthy. And when you're around people and, like in this situation, and you're opened up because, maybe they've been trying to have children for a while but can't, and, that, and you're compassionate towards them. And then all of a sudden, you have a couple of kids and they're not, and, they're prospering financially. You're struggling. And what can happen in this type of situation is that you can create an energetic, psychic, subconscious story or message to yourself that can keep you in that spot, or can transmit something to you that you didn't have before. In this case, in the form of financial struggle, just always struggling to get ahead, something always going wrong. Again, it's just a financial struggle. And you may find out that it's this interaction that you've traded messages with somebody else. And again, it's not necessarily saying that those people really intended that upon you, or it's not saying some type of voodoo's going on. It's simply an emotional exchange. And because what happens is, from our time, in our youth, when we're trying to come to conclusions, when we're trying to understand how everything is working energetically, we come to conclusions, we write stories about ourselves and about others, and those stories and those conclusions begin to manifest themselves because it's what we are focusing on. And what we are focusing on expands, or if it's emotionally fear charged, sometimes if we're afraid of something happening or going wrong, the fear activates it because that's the emotional charge. So there can be a lot going on here. And what can happen is that, you may have started out and, you may have been excited for a family, and, again, you only envisioned everything getting better, everything prospering. And then you're around somebody like we were talking about in this scenario, and next thing you know, a struggle manifests. And sometimes it can be just for something as simple as this. And just the conclusions that you're coming to your mind, that are coming to in your mind as you're in this type of highly charged emotional situation. And sometimes there can be, lifelong messages, lifelong stories, things that we feel are imposed upon us by our family, roles that we play. And it's an example of, like Shakespeare said, we are all just players on a stage. We're all just playing parts on a stage where everybody and ourselves are viewing. And when you recognize that, sometimes your role is influenced, sometimes your role is affected by people around you, then you can become aware of any type of energetic agreement that you are adding to that idea, and therefore manifesting it in your life. And in the scripture, there's there's what's called the prayer of agreement, and where it says, if two or more of you agree on earth as touching anything in heaven, it shall be done unto you. And that prayer of agreement doesn't necessarily have to be spoken words. It can just be energy. It can just be, you're interacting with someone, and you feel like through little things that they say that they're hinting at something towards you. And you in one way or another, you end up agreeing with it or being emotionally attached to it by fearing it, fearing that it's possible, fearing that it might come true, fearing that it's something that could happen, or wondering. And here's a way a lot of people attach to things like this energetically. They wonder, well, what would I do? If that happened to me, what would I do? How would I deal with that? What would I do? And by doing that, again, you're energetically attaching to it and creating it in one form or another because of the emotional attachment. So when we recognize this, a lot of times, just bringing up the subject can bring up moments, and they can say, oh, wow, yeah, I remember that. And you can be released from it, because once you withdraw your agreement, once you start saying, no, that's not who I am, no, I'm not participating in that, or you realize that that's where the fear was created, and you recognize, this is irrational, it's not real, and maybe if it's something that happened a long time ago, you can recognize, okay, well, it never happened, and so you can detach yourself from it emotionally, and then by detaching yourself from it emotionally, you can also be aware of these influences. And especially now during the holiday season, when a lot of people are vulnerable to either reinforcing these messages, these stories, or ending up with new ones, you can be aware. And again, one of the most powerful ways to simply empower your own consciousness is to watch your thoughts, to not be, just allow your thoughts to take over and be connected to your emotions, but to step back as the watcher, look at your thoughts and say to yourself, as an observer, I'm just observing these. These thoughts are not me. They're not who I am. They're not my mind. These are just options. These are just energetic suggestions. These are just choices in the realm of possibility that I'm becoming aware of right now. And then recognize again, you're not your mind, you're not your thoughts, and be in conscious connection to true consciousness, which is above all, which is the most powerful. And when you can do that, what happens is that it creates a gap in the story that you don't want to support. And when you create a gap in the story that you don't want to support, that opens up the power and the energy to create the story that you do want to support. So with that, Ganothi Seutan, love, peace, blessing, happiness, goodness, health, wealth unto you and your family. And with that, namaste.